Welcome to this edition of Dufferin Life. I'm your host, Teena Avery. Thank you so much for joining us today. So we have a very special guest on today. And I'm thrilled that she's here. She's been on here before, but in her new position, I would like to introduce you to the Honorable Mayor Lisa Post. Lisa, thank you so much for joining
Teena.
us.
Thank you so much for having me. This is great. I'm excited to be here.
Look, it's such a force of habit for me to call you Lisa.
You call me Lisa. That's exactly what you should call me.
But thank you, Mayor Post, for joining us. It's very exciting. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And I'm so thrilled that you're here, because what I want to do is I want to get to know you a little bit more. I want everyone else to get to know you a little bit more as well. So we're going to start from the beginning almost.
Okay.
So I thought that maybe we would talk about where you grew up and where you were born, and kind of, a little bit about that, maybe some of your hobbies that you were doing when you were younger and some of your interests.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I was born in Orangeville, actually, at the old hospital, which is now the Lord Dufferin Center, as was my dad. So, my family's through 5 generations, I guess, in this area. My dad grew up in Caledon Village and went to high school at ODSS, and so did I. So when I was about 2, we did move away. We moved to Saskatoon and lived there for a decade or so with my dad's work. And then life took us back to this area. So we moved back to Orangeville when I was 12. And I've been here ever since. I haven't left.
Oh, that's amazing. And it's so great to it's great to have the experience to live somewhere else but to come back to what's home, right?
It's our home. It's absolutely our home. And when my husband and I got married, we decided this was where we wanted to raise our kids. He grew up in the area as well. He was from Grand Valley, and so Orangeville was kind of his stomping grounds as well. So it was just natural that we wanted to raise our kids here. It was the place that raised both of us. So
Right. Well, let's talk about the high school years. We don't have any photos or anything to show you.
Thank goodness.
I didn't think that far ahead. But let's talk about just growing up and when you came back to town. What were you interested in doing back then? What hobbies did you have?
That's such a great question. So I always really liked school. I was really into school. I loved to read. I loved to learn. And I went to high school my whole time in Orangeville, loved hanging out with my friends. I had a part-time job at Tim Hortons on First Street and worked there. And I just really liked, being around my friends and being with people and reading. I did a little bit of sports. I wasn't super sporty, but I was more of a reader and writer. I love to write. I love to journal. I still do all of that. So
that's right too. And let's talk about so when you were reading, what type of books would you read? Where did your interest lie?
Oh, anything. I just really love knowledge. I love learning new things. I really like reading great stories by great authors. I love Canadian authors. One of my favorite authors is Terry Fallis. He does kind of a political satire-y kind of book, and those are now my favorites. But growing up, I loved all the normal kids stuff, like the Babysitter's Club and Nancy Drew and anything that was a good series that could keep me involved, right?
I remember my sister always had Nancy Drew, and then I guess the version at that time for me was Trixie Belden. Oh my gosh, aging myself.
That's right.
Yeah, loving to read, right?
Yeah.
I remember coming home from school and just like picking up a book and just reading, sitting there and reading a book.
Me too.
And just finishing the book in one night, because I'm one of those people that I need to know what happens.
Loves a good story and just keep going. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was the one up late at night hiding under my covers with my flashlight so my parents wouldn't get mad at me staying up too late, but I was up reading because I just loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think my love did turn to watching movies and that sort of thing. And I have this weird quirk where no matter how bad the movie is, I have to watch it till the end. My husband and I will sit there and watch a movie, and he'll be like, "This is horrible, Teena," and I'll be like, "I know, but I need to know what happens."
I used to be kind of similar to that, and then I got a full-time job at Blockbuster. So for a long time, I worked. A lot of people may know me from the Blockbuster days because I managed one of the stores in town for 5 or 6 years. And as a perk of that job, you watched a lot of movies.
Yes.
So it got to a point where you would start a movie, and if it was terrible, you would just shut it off and move to the next one because there were so many options to get a great story in.
Yeah. And what type of movies do you like to watch?
I love a good comedy. Okay. I really do love a good comedy just to lighten the end of the day and have a good laugh. I really like to laugh. I love to sit with my husband and watch a movie and have a good laugh at it. But I love a good story as well. So if there was something compelling or something that was a great story, I would always dive into that too. So as long as it was a good story, I was into it.
I know. It's so, but like and I still have that quirk too. Sometimes I have to stop the movie and then Doug will go to sleep and then I'll put the movie back on.
No horror films for me though.
No?
Can't do that.
Oh,
no.
I love
no
them.
scary movies.
No? I love scary movies. I'm like, when we first met and we started dating, so I'm not originally from Orangeville, but we moved up here 25 years ago now, and decided we wanted to raise our family here as well. But yeah, we're not talking about me. We're going to talk about you. So I'm thinking, how many weird little stories am I going to tell about myself?
There's always good fun stuff, though. I like to hear them.
For sure. So before you got into the whole political side of things and town council and that sort of thing, I mean, I know that you're a big advocate for many, many different causes here in town. So let's talk a little bit about when you got out of school. Where were you head? Like, what were your goals? What were you planning to do?
So me and my husband got married quite young. So I had gone away to college and got into a program that really wasn't for me, and left and moved back, and then ended up meeting my husband, and the rest is history there. But so we got married young. I was 18 when him and I got married, and we had kids. My first son was born when I was 20. So when I got into working, I was really working to do a job to sustain my family. So I got my accidental career, as I like to call it, was retail management. I got into retail and was really good at it, and moved up the management chain, learned a lot from great bosses, and learned a lot about people. And the more different large brands that I worked for and the more diverse groups of people that I worked with, I really found my love for volunteering, because I learned a lot about people, I learned a lot about cultures, I learned a lot about what gaps there were in the communities from some of my employees that I had at the time in my leadership positions, and I could understand what their needs were a little differently just in the role that I was in, and it got me into volunteering.
Right.
And I found lots of great organizations in Orangeville that I could lend some of those new skills to, and just found that community piece was exactly where my heart was. So that's what moved me out of my accidental retail career and more into the community-focused work.
Yeah, and I know, because I mean, I think we've crossed paths in different committees over the years, and we just wave as we go by.
That's right, exactly.
Oh, you're on this one now, we're going to go over here. Yeah.
That's right.
But yeah, no, and I think, there's something to be said for somebody who has grown up here for the most part, and just rooted your family here, and you're raising your family here, and all of the different things that you have done on the volunteer side of things for such, and I always say this, it's such an amazing community that we live in.
It is such an amazing community, and the more different groups and committees and organizations that I worked with, the more I got to meet great people in this community. And I really got to understand what their needs were. And, some of the groups that I work with deal with some of the people who always are on the margins of the community, right? Whose voices aren't necessarily heard and aren't necessarily reflected. And the more that I started to work with those groups, the more that I realized that I had a platform that I could use my voice at, and some skills that I could bring to the table that could help to advocate for some of those voices that sometimes aren't heard.
And that's so very important, and that's important everywhere, not just in our community.
Absolutely.
But it's to have somebody that can advocate for the people that need it most.
Yes, exactly.
Which I think is wonderful. So we'll jump ahead a little bit. And so you're doing all this different volunteering, and we'll delve into a little bit about how you decided that town council was the way that you wanted to move towards.
So in 2014, the election in 2014 was starting to approach, and I started to see some stuff on social media about, candidates can register until this time. And I had thought about town council, but never really seriously, until we really started to look at wanting to make sure that our children had a safe and healthy and affordable place to live in. So I thought, well, again, I could maybe try and make a difference here. I don't know if people know me well enough in the community yet, but I'm going to throw my name in the hat. So I talked to my husband and my sister, and we made a plan that I was going to go ahead for it and run for council. So I ran for council in 2014 unsuccessfully, learned a ton, and just stayed involved. And meeting candidates and knocking on doors really started to teach me more even about things in the community from a municipal government level that people were lacking,
right,
and voices that they were lacking or feeling like their voices were heard. So After that election, I attended every single council meeting. I went to all of them, and I learned about the municipal process and learned about the council process and started to understand better how a municipal budget works. And through that election, after that election until 2018, that's how I spent those 4 years, was really trying to do my due diligence to make sure that I could be a great candidate in 2018.
Yeah, and I think that there's something to be said to spend the time and do that type of research. Because I think, depending on how involved people are in the community, I think it crosses people's minds every once in a while.
Sure
like,
does.
oh, maybe I could do that. But I think that everybody needs that experience to be really involved in the community on a higher level. Like if it's something that you're looking to do in the future to be on town council or something like that. Like it's great to volunteer and be a part of the community and try to support things. And there's so many different things to support in this community. That how do you do that? But you need that, at least some knowledge of how the system works. I think.
If people are interested, I really recommend that when our new term of council really gets ramped up and we start having applications ready for committees, join a committee. Put your name in. If there's an interest in a committee that you want to join it. If start watching the council meetings, attend the council meetings, ask something at question period, start to understand how the process really works, because oftentimes people have come from the corporate world and understand how a corporate business works, but municipal government is very different. And there's some similarities, but the way that it functions and the process that goes behind decision making is very different. So jump on board, learn about it, join a committee, come to a council meeting. By all means, we need great candidates always.
Yeah, absolutely. And I encourage you, if you're not already volunteering in Dufferin County, to do exactly what Lisa said. Even if you don't have aspirations to be a town councilor or anything like that, being involved in so many wonderful organizations and the organizations that work together. Like, I just love that it's not a competition, that there are so many service clubs and so many organizations and not-for-profits that will find a way to work together for the betterment of the community.
And they help each other. They help each other wherever they can. And, the service clubs need new members, and organizations always need different skill sets on them, whether it's as part of a board or to help with a fundraiser or to even help on a one-off occasion. But get involved, get into the community, get to meet some of those people. Because they're great people.
Because I think some of my most valuable conversations have come with people that I've just met through doing just volunteering in the community or being out in the community and just being a part of it, like supporting. I'm always saying support local, and as we move closer towards the holiday season, I'm going to continually say shop local, support local. Yes. But it's just an amazing place to live.
Absolutely.
And we want to keep it that way for our kids as they grow up, and some will move away and some will come back.
Exactly. And that's one of the key pieces, right? Let's try and find a way to support our community so that our children do want to come back when they're done school, and maybe they want to raise their families here too. And again, it was a driving factor to get me involved.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's part of it, because kids will move away and have an experience that they need to have, and then they'll come back, right? So, but I want you guys to stay and come back, because we're going to keep this lovely guest with us to talk a little bit about what she sees in the next coming 4 years for Orangeville. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Hi, I'm Melinda from Move with Melinda. I am so excited. We have an 8-part fitness series out now. We're going to include stability ball training, resistance training, aerobic training, and flexibility. Right here on Rogers TV. Stay fit, stay healthy.
Hey, I'm Chef Corey Dern, host of a show on Rogers TV Georgina called Cooking with Corey. Join me bi-weekly for brand new episodes where I teach you not only what to cook, but how to cook. The only thing missing is smell-o-vision. That's Cooking with Corey right here on Rogers TV Georgina.
Welcome back to Dufferin Life. If you're just joining us, you've come in at a great time. We are getting to know our new mayor, Lisa Post. Lisa's here. See, I can't even do it. Mayor Post is here, joining to tell us a little bit about you. But let's get into the nitty gritty of everything.
Sure.
And let's talk about the campaign process. What was it like going door to door, like working through the campaign?
I really enjoy a campaign. It's kind of a love-hate relationship with a campaign. So it's a lot of work. It's a lot of dedication. There is a lot of doors to knock on in Orangeville. And it's always a little daunting to put yourself completely out there, because that's exactly what you're doing. And I know it's hard for my family too, because you're open to criticism, and it's tough on it can be tough on the family that way. But I love having the conversations.
Okay.
My favorite part of campaigning is door knocking. Wow. I love knocking on doors. And I know for some candidates that's the worst part, because you never know what you're going to get. But I have some of the best conversations. I meet the greatest people, and 98% of people are so super friendly and just so happy to have a chat and to have your ear for a minute to talk about the things in the community that concern them.
Yeah.
So it's where I learn the most about the community. It's where I learn the most about people and needs and gaps, and also the great things. I got to hear so many great stories about things that people loved or programs people attended, and some of them I didn't know about. So that was awesome to hear, and there's nothing like door knocking to get really down to what the community is all about.
And I love talking to people, as you well know. If you've tuned into the show before, I love to chat and chat. But I'm not sure I don't know. It's an interesting thought of how I would feel knocking on someone's door.
And it's not for everybody.
No.
It's not for everybody. My daughter is a great supporter of mine, and she used to love knocking on doors until she had a bad experience at a door, and that kind of deterred her from wanting to take part in the door knocking experience. She'll still do it, but she's a little more reluctant, and maybe it's her age too. But
This is it. This is absolutely it. But I mean, at the same time, I mean, if you're putting yourself out there to be on the town council, to run for mayor, deputy mayor, anything like that, you kind of have to have a thick skin. Like, you have to be able to deal with the good and the bad.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you have to be open to hearing it and know that it's not personal.
Yeah.
Social media can be a little toxic, and it can cause for some significant issues that way. But for the most part, when people are sharing concerns with you, it's not about you. It's about something that they're frustrated with.
Right.
That they hope that you're going to be able to solve for them, or at least point them in the right direction of getting it solved.
Okay. So let's jump to the day of the election. Tell me a little bit about what was going through your mind that day, and how did you handle it?
I was a total stress ball. I'm going to be totally honest with you, because again, you never know what you're going to get. You hope you've gotten your message across well enough. You hope that you have stood on the credibility that you've already brought to the table, and you hope that you've had enough conversations and that you've done enough. I knocked on about 8,000 doors through the election, and you hope that it's enough. I didn't get to every house. I really wanted to, and it's really tough to do that.
Yeah.
But so going into it, you never know what's actually going to happen at the polls.
Right.
So I was really terrified, because I really didn't know what was going to happen. So I tried to keep myself out of the idea of the election for most of the day, and keep myself busy. So my girlfriend from Toronto came up, one of my best friends that I grew up with, and we went shopping and got a coffee at Mochaberry and wandered up and down the streets and just tried to be, instead of worrying. At that point it's too late. I can't do anything.
What's done is done.
What's done is done, and just hope you've done enough, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But election night was a lot of fun. And again, terrifying as results start coming in. You start to watch and you're like, okay, that was a good poll, but you've got 10 polls to look at. So yeah, it was, and very excited.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, I'm sure with your family supporting you and your friends supporting you, it was a great celebration.
It sure was.
When the announcement was finally made and official.
Yes, it was. And I actually came to Rogers Studio and spoke to Simran and the crew that was here that day. And luckily, all of the new candidates who had been elected had come through. So I invited all of them to come to the party with me, and we all celebrated together for a little while, which was really nice. Yeah.
That's really important too. So let's talk about voting, because I believe, I don't know if it was a record number number of just there was not a lot of people that went out to vote for this election.
It was very low, and it was very low across the province in almost every municipality. So I've heard a little bit of talk about, well, if we had had online voting or if we had phone voting, which, by the way, we do want for next election. But even some of the municipalities that had all of those options had the same or less voter turnout than we did. Okay. So what causes it? I don't know. I mean, is it voter apathy? Is that people are happy with the status quo? I'm not sure. But I think now that, you know, we're lucky enough to be in those seats, we have a responsibility to try and do a better job engaging the electorate, trying to get them involved in the process in any way that we can. And I think part of it is making sure that they feel understood and they feel heard. And if they feel heard during a council term, maybe they'll feel heard at the ballot as well.
Yeah, and I think, you know, I've always said to people, if you don't vote, you can't complain. Like, it's just one of those things. Like, if there's something that you are unhappy with or something you need help with, always go if you need help with something. But if there's something that you're unhappy with, you know, if you have to support the community to do your part by going out there to vote.
Yeah. It's such an important piece. And, you know, for some people who didn't grow up in an overly political family, I grew up in a very political family. So voting was just a natural thing that we did. But for some, it's just not. And some people, you know, lives are busy and people are busy. And for some, it's the last thing on their mind. And we need to do a better job to change that. It's not on them. I think it's partially on us.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about the council. So there are some familiar faces that are back, and there's a couple new faces as well.
Yep.
So how do you think that's going to fare out moving forward over the next 4 years?
I think it's going to be excellent. I'm really excited to work with all of them. All of them have been in the community for a long time. Some of them have experience on council already. Some of them have other municipal experience. And all of them have been very active in the community in some capacity for a number of years. So even our two newest members, Rick and Tess, you know, Rick has been in the community a really long time with Orangeville Minor Hockey and other organizations. Tess is with the Scouts and is an active volunteer in other areas of the community as well. So they're not new to the community by any means, and they're very aware of the issues, and I think they're going to be great additions to an already great team.
That's awesome. So let's talk. We've got a couple new members. We've got some seasoned members. We have a seasoned member that is now the mayor. Yeah. So how do we look to building the communication with people in the community? Because, I mean, we've talked briefly about social media isn't always the right avenue. It is very toxic. It can be. You just get a lot of people that want to express bad opinions, not those other people there. How do we build the communication between town council and people in Orangeville? So
I think there's a few things. So the members of council who have currently sat on council, like Deputy Mayor Todd Taylor and Debbie Sherwood and Joe Andrews, they already have some social media presence. And most of them, and Andy as well, do start to communicate things where they can through their social media channels, which I think is great. We've got a fantastic communications team at the town of Orangeville that is really starting to change their direction in how they communicate to the residents. But there's a few other things. So knocking on doors, one of the things that I heard the most from people is that they don't feel like they've been heard. They don't feel like that their opinions are asked for with big decisions. So one of the things that I campaigned on was changing that a little bit too. I want to host regular town hall forums that are not as proper as a council meeting, so not quite as daunting or intimidating as a council meeting would be, or as formal. So where people can come up and just share their opinions and hear from us on what's going on. Also getting seniors and youth involved are two big components as well, and making sure that their opinions are asked.
Absolutely. And let's talk about town council, because I think you've got some exciting news about moving forward and being back in person.
Yes, we're going to be back in person. So we're going to have a hybrid option, which is something, if I can find silver linings in the pandemic, that would be one of them, because the Municipal Act did not allow for any members to be absent from the room, the physical room before. And that changed through COVID. So now hybrid options are an option, which I think is great. So if a member of council is under the weather or test positive for COVID, they can stay at home and still participate in the meeting, which I think is wonderful. So there's new technology in there to allow that to happen. But we will be in council chambers, and our first official sit-down meeting that's not an inauguration formal meeting is November 28th, and the public is absolutely welcome to attend that or anyone's after that. And they will still be on YouTube as well. So for those who don't want to come out and want to watch from home, that's still going to be an option as well.
Yes, yeah, I know Rogers is always usually there. Yeah. Not me personally, but yeah, absolutely. And so, and I think that it's all, it don't matter what you do, it's about creating awareness and communicating. And I think that the past 4 years with the council that was in place, and with Mayor Brown, the communication improved.
It did. It definitely did. And part of it was that all of us as council members were willing to be very accessible in multiple formats. So people could phone us, they could email us, they could message us on social media or tag us on Facebook, and we would reply, and we would do our best to make sure that we got back to them as quickly as possible.
Okay, so we have a couple minutes left. So what I wanted to touch on is, I know you run a platform based on fiscal responsibility and inclusivity. And where do you see that moving forward in the next 4 years?
Well, the first piece is going to be getting the budget done for 2023, and I know it's going to be probably the most challenging budget that councils have seen in a long time, because inflation rates are so high that to try and really make sure that we're fiscally responsible and still able to move forward all the important capital projects and infrastructure projects that need to happen to make the town move forward. So those next budgets are going to be very challenging and interesting, and we're going to need to get started on one of them pretty much right away. But moving forward, I think there's a lot of things that we can continue to do. We're going to see the Equity, Diversity and Inclusion Committee come back. We only had just started it towards the end of our term, and we've got work to do still. So we want to build a strategy to make sure that we have a real good plan moving forward. There's other key pieces that need to be done, though. We need to get our official plan done. We've got to keep worrying about environmental sustainability. And there's a lot of components that have been started for those that this council is going to need to continue to nurture and support.
So you've got your work cut out for you.
We sure do. It's going to be a busy and exciting 4 years.
It is for sure. It is for sure. You know, and I think the more, and you know, I can't wait to have you on again when we're partway through, so we can just kind of go over where we started and where you see it going. But I mean, I think that there's so many good things moving forward that you've kind of touched on and where you want to go with it. So I think that I mean, we've got about a minute left. Okay. So any last final thoughts you wanted to share with everybody about the next 4 years?
Just that, you know, I'm really excited to work with the group that's there. I think that all of us are there to move forward some really important key things and to make sure that Orangeville's set up for not only today, but for the future generations. We want to make sure that our children and grandchildren have a great community to live in, and we're all really passionate about it. So I think you're going to see some really great community development.
Well, that's absolutely amazing. So if you want more information on the town council meetings, what's happening, go to it's orangeville.ca.
Orangeville.ca, yeah.
To get all of that information for sure. I want to thank you so much for coming on here and sharing some of your personal life and sharing some of your goals for the next 4 years. Mayor Post, I want to thank you for just coming on here to better the communication with our town.
Anytime. Thank you for having me, Teena. It's been great.
It was definitely my pleasure. And thank you for joining us. And until next time, bye-bye for now.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.